Yesterday, we talked about the glory of God as we looked at a passage from the book of 1 Kings. Today, I want to deal with the grace of God and look in the book of 2 Kings. To give us the setting, in chapter 13, verse 23, we hear this. But the Lord was gracious to them, had compassion on them, and regarded them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and would not yet destroy them or cast them from his presence. Now, the truth is that none of us deserve the blessings of God. That's what grace is all about. We have failed him repeatedly, yet his love is unfailing. We wander from his will, but not beyond his reach. And this is truly amazing grace. Now, there's several examples of that grace that are found in 2 Kings chapter 13. First of all, we discover that God is gracious in answering prayer in verses 1 through 9. So Jehoahaz pleaded with the Lord, and the Lord listened to him. That's in verse 4. We've often heard that God does not hear the prayers of sinners, and generally that's a true statement. There's a scriptural basis for that. But it would be better stated that God has no obligation to hear those prayers, because sometimes God chooses in his sovereignty to listen to the prayers of sinners. We see that with Jehoahaz, whether it be the cry of forgiveness from a penitent sinner or the call for help from a prodigal son. It is amazing grace that God responds at all. There are times that we struggle to comprehend why God doesn't answer some of our prayers. We ought rather to be surprised that he answers any, considering how often we disobey him. But see, that's grace. God disciplines the disobedient, and we see that in the text, but he does not disown his children, delivering them when they call. God is also seen to be gracious in supplying power in verses 10 through 21. We read this remarkable story. So it was, as they were burying a man, that suddenly they spied a band of raiders, and they put the man in the tomb of Elisha. And when the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood up on his feet. You know, grace is God's power for the demands of life. God's power can give us insight into future decisions. Elisha was a man who had tapped into God's resources and so was able to offer counsel to the king. And this was not a natural gift, it was a supernatural grace. Unfortunately, the king failed to fully avail himself of the gracious power of God to achieve an enduring victory. Such was the power of the prophet that even after Elisha died, a corpse contacting his bones brought a resurrection. Grace is such that those who have received it transmit it even beyond their lifetime. For example, the grace that rested in Paul flows on into our lives today. The grace that resided with Spurgeon is still impacting pastors today. It may be that your parents are in the grave, but the godly prayers they offered are still bringing grace. Grace outlives us. It's something of eternal value and worth. God is gracious in giving provision as well. And we read about that in verses 22 through 25. And Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, recaptured from the hand of Ben-Hadad, the son of Hazael, the cities which he had taken out of the hand of Jehoahaz, his father, by war. You know, God is so good, even when we're not. Grace is the provision for our need. Here we are in poverty, but God has plenty. Someone has described grace with this acrostic: God's riches at Christ's expense. And here we see Israel reclaiming what they had lost. They thought they were undeserving, and indeed they were, but God was gracious in granting them victory. Justice is when we get what we deserve. Mercy means we do not get what we do deserve. Grace means we get what we do not deserve. If we receive justice, we will be left in hell. Mercy means that we do not have to go there. Grace means that heaven is open to us instead. How precious is this grace? Isn't it amazing?